Are ultra-processed foods to blame for all of the chronic health conditions that are on the rise? After all, 58% of the calories consumed in the USA come from ultra-processed foods. While it's true that some large meta-analyses show that the more ultra-processed foods we consume, the higher our risk of things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and mental health challenges, there's nuance here that is very important. First of all, while diets overabundant in ultra-processed foods do increase risk of health problems, that doesn't mean we need to eliminate them completely in order to be healthy. Consuming up to 20% of our calories from ultra-processed foods has no negative health impact. Second, not all ultra-processed foods are bad for us. Ultra-processed foods are defined based on the amount of processing they undergo, not defined based on their nutritive value. And as a result, there are many foods that are either health neutral or beneficial that are categorized as ultra-processed foods, like instant oatmeal or canned chicken vegetable soup, frozen dinners, and fruit on the bottom yogurt. And yet they're counted in statistics like 58% of calories in the USA coming from ultra-processed foods. And third, we don't actually have a definitive answer for why increased ultra-processed food intake increases risk for chronic disease, which means that causality has not been established. Lots of people want to blame the additives, the preservatives, the contaminants, but most of the time, even these diets that are majority ultra-processed foods are staying within the acceptable daily intake levels of all of those compounds. There's certainly some exceptions. There are some people who exceed the acceptable daily intake levels of food dyes, for example, and there's very strong socioeconomic disparities. No surprise, right? But also, on average, the more ultra-processed foods you consume, the lower your intake of essential nutrients. And there are plenty of scientists, and I agree with them, that it is the lack of nutrients in these same diets that's the real culprit. Which means that if you take a nutrient density focus, you can actually craft an ultra-processed food diet that's healthy. I'll dig into that statement in more detail in another video, but my point here is that this is not black and white. Taxing ultra-processed foods or putting a Surgeon General's warning on them is not going to automatically mean a more nutrient-replete diet, and it'll just worsen the big systemic problems we have in terms of accessibility and affordability. It's why the Nutrivore philosophy, which is simply the goal of getting all of the nutrients our bodies need from the foods we eat, focuses on affordable, accessible foods we can add to our diets, not what we restrict, and considers the nutritional merits and health benefits of foods above the processing.